It's Monday, June 21. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The community of Norwood in St. James has been declared a zone of special operations, ZOSO. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the declaration on Sunday, June 20. Mr. Holness said the community continues to be characterized by gang violence and criminal activities. He said the ZOSO will bring some peace to the community, giving it an opportunity to turn a new leaf in its existence.
We have estimated that approximately 1,600 of those are males between 14 and 29. There are about 5,200 building structures in that community. The community is generally considered to have emerged in an unplanned way. It has issues such as lack of water, but the housing structures are generally of good stock and construction of concrete, and it houses workers mainly in the tourism sector. But you can see that in an area of approximately 1 square kilometer with over 11,000 persons living there with unplanned infrastructure, that there could be the levels of crime and violence that we are experiencing in those areas. In fact, since the beginning of the year, 15 murders and 14 shootings have occurred.
He says 66 murders have been recorded in Norwood since 2019, and 6 known gangs are active in the community.
The overall intention in declaring an additional community in St. James as a zone of special operation is to ensure that we can deliver social interventions leading to an improved living condition and quality of life for the citizens in that area.
Acting Chief of Defense Staff of the Jamaica Defense Force, Commodore Antoinette Wemyss Gorman, described the boundaries of the zone.
To the north, beginning at the intersection of Norwood Highway and Norwood Boulevard, the boundary extends in an easterly direction along Norwood Highway to the intersection of Morning Glory Crescent. To the east, the boundary extends southerly along Morning Glory Crescent and then onto Pimento Drive to the intersection with the 5th Avenue, then southerly along an imaginary line for approximately 0.7 kilometer, denoted by a water feature in the area. To the south, continuing from the point in the vicinity of the water feature, the boundary extends westerly for approximately 0.5 kilometer to the one-way Tabernacle Early Childhood Institution, then northerly for approximately 0.03 kilometer onto Robert Reed Drive. It then continues north along Charles Drive for approximately 0.3 kilometer and continues in a northwesterly direction along an unnamed road for approximately 0.4 kilometer to the Hendon Main Road. The boundary then continues westerly along the roadway for approximately 0.2 kilometer. And finally, to the west, it extends in another direction along the Hendon-Norwood Main Road and then onto Norwood Main Road or Top Road, and continuing north onto the Norwood Highway to the start point at the intersection of Norwood Highway and Norwood Boulevard.
Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson says persons are being urged to cooperate with the security officers.
We are confident that this will create the space that our partners on the social security front so desperately need to breathe new life into this community and build long-term positive structures. As such, we need the support and cooperation of the residents and persons doing business in or transiting the declared areas, and indeed all Jamaicans. There may be some delays to the motoring public and inconvenience. We ask for your patience and understanding. The public can assist by contacting Crime Stop at 311 if they have information, or by contacting the St. James Police, by complying with the requests of the security officers at checkpoints, by adhering to curfew guidelines, and by notifying the JCF of any breaches of professional conduct by members at our iProbe number, which is 876-838-3084.
The Health and Wellness Ministry has advised that no vaccines will be administered on Monday, June 21 and Tuesday, June 22, 2021. Persons with second dose due on these 2 days are asked not to visit any vaccination center, but to await contact from the regional health authorities with details of their new appointment. Vaccination will resume for persons 50 years and older who are due their second dose on Wednesday, June 23, 2021. The ministry further advises that a shipment of vaccines is expected in the island this week, and full rollout of second dose vaccination for all age groups across the island will resume on the weekend. Persons who are scheduled to receive their second dose are still within the recommended wait period between doses as prescribed by the World Health Organization, the WHO. The current WHO recommendation is that persons wait 8 to 12 weeks between the first and second dose in the case of the double-dose vaccine made by AstraZeneca. Further to that, the recommendation from the experts is if persons go beyond the 12th week, they should get the second dose as soon as possible thereafter. Today is International Yoga Day. June 21 was proclaimed as the International Day of Yoga by the United Nations in 2015. The International Day of Yoga aims to raise awareness worldwide of the many benefits of practicing yoga. Yoga improves strength, balance and flexibility, and mental health. Every year, practitioners all over the world bring out their mats on June 21 to show their love for yoga. Here in Jamaica, the Indian High Commission is leading this year's celebration.
We are celebrating the 7th International Day of Yoga, which started in 2015, which was initiated by my Prime Minister in the UN JAAA, and it was adopted with the overwhelming support from 177 countries in 2015. And we are marking that occasion, which is the 7th anniversary of the International Day of Yoga celebration. It is a celebration of unity of body, soul and mind, and it's not just within myself, but it is also to have a peaceful relationship with our fellow being, and not just within our human fellow beings, but also have a symbiotic relationship with our environment.
Iguanas are among the world's most endangered animals. In Jamaica, fear caused many to rush to kill them, but these animals are a boon to our ecosystem as they disperse the seeds of many native plants. Marlon Samuels looked at measures being used to protect the Jamaican iguana, which was once thought to be extinct.
The Jamaican iguana was thought to be extinct until a change encounter led to its discovery in Hellshire, St. Catherine. The Jamaican iguana is not found anywhere else in the world. It is very large and can grow up to 150 centimeters, making it Jamaica's largest native land animal.
This species is an ecosystem engineer, if you will, or a habitat manager. So basically the iguanas are consuming important food resources, important plant species from the dry forests of Jamaica. And as those seeds pass through the gut, it actually degrades the seed coat and allows germination to happen faster and a bigger percentage of seeds to germinate. So basically the iguanas are helping to maintain the dry forests, which are also an endangered ecosystem for the country.
One of the steps taken to protect the Jamaica iguana is the implementation of an Iguana Head Start program at the Hope Zoo in Kingston. The Hope Zoo is internationally recognized for its Iguana Head Start program.
Here at the Hope Zoo, we are in charge of the Head Start program for the highly endangered Jamaican iguana. The program consists of us collecting hatchlings just after they've hatched from their sites in the wild, and we will feed them up and rear them over a number of years.
Once the tiny iguanas get to a certain size, the iguana are released into the wild, but not before health checks are done.
$14.90.
Get the bag weight there. 30.1. So the tail is very stubby. Male iguanas have 2 penises, so it's a female.
We're looking for any lesions in the mouth, the color of the mucous membranes.
I would say she's in good condition. One of the main threats to the iguanas in the wild are invasive species. So we have a lot of cats and dogs and mongoose in the natural habitat for the iguanas. So what we're trying to do is make sure they're big enough to be able to defend themselves against those predators. So we want to check the mass, or how much the iguana weighs, and how long it is, how big it is from snout to vent. And then we run a quick analysis to see if it meets our minimum requirements, and then size-wise it will be ready to go. But then we also want to do a quick check just to make sure it doesn't have any lesions, any bruising, anything that might give it a slight disadvantage once we release it into the wild.
The conservation and recovery effort is working. Over 400 young adult iguanas have been released into their native habitat. Some have been killed by mongoose, wild cats, and wild dogs. Also, human activity continues to take their toll on the iguana species. Conservationists are currently trying to find a home for Jamaica's largest land animals so they can be safe. Marlon Samuels reporting for PBCJ News.
In Friday's trading session, the JSE combined index advanced by 2,948 points to close at over 438,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 98 stocks, of which 42 advanced, 43 declined, and 13 traded firm. The junior market index advanced by 12 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Variable Preference, Access Financial Services Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Berger Paints Jamaica Limited, and Blue Power Group Limited. Trading firm were 1834 Investments Limited, CAC 2000, 9.5% preference shares, and Appley 7.5% preference shares. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited was the volume leader with over 20 million units, followed by Future Energy Source Company Limited ordinary shares with 16.4 million units, and Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 4.3 million units. In foreign exchange trading for Friday, June 18, the US dollar sold for an average $150.55. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $123.42. The pound sterling traded for $210.31, and the euro sold for an average $182.09. In market data for oil prices edged higher on Monday, underpinned by strong demand during the Northern Hemisphere summer driving season and a pause in talks to revive the Iran nuclear deal that could lead to a resumption of crude supplies from the OPEC producer. Brent crude for August gained 14 cents to $73.65 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude for July was up 21 cents at $71.85 a barrel. And on that note, we close this Monday edition of the Business Report Inside the News on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
In news from the region, all the vaccines available in Trinidad and Tobago for the first dose of COVID-19 inoculation will be used within the next 2 weeks. However, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says the COVID-19 vaccination program continues as people would need to get their second dose of either AstraZeneca or Sinopharm vaccines. Kimberly D'Souza of TTT News tells us more.
Within the next 2 weeks, we would have used up, at the rate at which we are going here, we would have used up all the vaccines that we have in hand for use as first dose, which means that if we don't get a new shipment by the end of the month, we will not have vaccines to give anybody a first dose.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley made the announcement during Saturday's COVID-19 health update, adding that by mid-July, the total number of doses this country has received would be fully utilized. This includes the first and second dose of either the AstraZeneca or Sinopharm vaccines, but Dr. Rowley said a third shipment from the COVAX facility is expected soon.
It looks as though sometimes towards the end of July, if there are no further delays from the COVAX end, and ladies and gentlemen, that has nothing to do with the government or the Prime Minister or the Minister of Health. We are now recipients of that.
He said government is expecting approximately 33,000 doses from COVAX and advised more vaccines will be purchased from China.
We also are continuing our purchase from China, and we expect that there would be another shipment in July in the order similar to the one we just got, or a little bit more, and we wait until we get the shipment documentation on that, confirmation on that, to tell you more.
He also revealed that more vaccines were expected in August from the African Medical Supply Platform. Dr. Rowley said he is also keeping an eye on the vaccines promised to Latin American countries and the Caribbean from U.S. President Joe Biden.
And of course, the fourth prong is the promise from the United States to share their vaccines, and we have not seen anything beyond that so far. We don't know what will come through, and I may add one more caveat: we don't know if we'll qualify.
Kimberly D'Souza, TTT News.
Though COVID-19 cases are increasing in St. Kitts and Nevis, a former chief medical officer says there should not be a hard lockdown of the country. Andre Huey of SKN Newsline reports.
Speaking in an interview with SK Newsline on Friday, Dr. Martin said a lockdown of the country would only exacerbate an already bad situation, economically and mentally.
A hard lockdown is too perilous. We have to consider people's spiritual health, social health, which means relationships with family, friends, and neighbors. I have to consider people's mental health, which means the capacity to cope with the normal and abnormal stresses of life. And we have to consider the health of the economy from which all of us get our livelihood. Having regard for all those factors, while at the same time knowing the risks to physical health, the balance favors the partial lockdown that we are now in. We did not have a full lockdown the first time around. Full lockdown means 10, 14 days of stay in place, shelter in place. We didn't have 10 consecutive or 14 consecutive days of curfew the first time. Subject to correction. I don't recall us having 14 consecutive days of curfew the first time.
Some residents and citizens believe the government should implement a lockdown, even similar to last year when the pandemic started, in a bid to stem the tide of COVID cases, which as of Wednesday, June 16, stood at 208 active cases. Some believe a lockdown, which would obviously have economic effects, would be efficient in bringing down the cases and prevent the spread of the virus. The government has instead pursued a partial lockdown for 2 weeks. In Dr. Martin's view, this can be very effective if administered properly.
Because you have to have testing alongside the curfew and the restrictions on mass events. So we're not having testing. The border is open, the air border is open, and from what I understand, yes, persons have to be fully vaccinated to come in, but there's no universal testing of travelers, incoming travelers. That needs to be done. And we also need to, with respect, rush to procure a high-performing rapid test so we can do some community-based testing in health centers and other places to identify persons who have no symptoms but are carrying the virus. The current approach is a reactive testing approach, mostly. We need a proactive testing strategy at the airport and in the community.
St. Kitts and Nevis recorded its first COVID-19 death on Thursday, more than a month since the new outbreak of COVID-19 cases in the Federation. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
In sports, Jamaica's Paralympians competed on the weekend for a chance to make Jamaica's national teams and compete in international athletic games. The 4 days National Junior and Senior Championships kicks off this Thursday, June 24, at the National Stadium. The championships, the first to be held since the advent of COVID-19, is being used to select Jamaica's teams to the World Athletics Under-20 Championships in Nairobi, Kenya, and the Olympic Games in Tokyo, Japan. Over 400 athletes will compete. Marlon Samuels has more in this report.
$12 million has been allocated to the J3As to assist with the cost to house the National Junior and Senior Championships at the National Stadium. There will be no spectators at the Gold Standard event. 659 COVID marshals will be there to make sure COVID-19 safety measures are followed. All participating athletes must submit a negative PCR COVID-19 test 72 hours ahead of the championships. Arrangements have been made with the University Hospital of the West Indies to facilitate the athletes. Non-compliance will result in expulsion from the championships.
The time frame for the daily events will be as follows. Thursdays, 8 a.m. to 7:05 p.m. Fridays, 8 a.m. to 8:25 p.m. Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 11.
The $12 million is in addition to sponsorship from the Supreme Ventures Group and other financial contributions from the Ministry of Sports.
There have been many hurdles that we have had to clear in order to be at this juncture. But the government of Jamaica, through my ministry, has been steadfast in our commitment to return sport in a safe way and to provide support for you, the athletes, and other stakeholders in the sector. We continue to provide subventions to over 14 national sporting associations and federations through the Sport Development Foundation. We reinstituted the payment of stipends to athletes preparing to represent Jamaica at the Olympic and Paralympic Games under the Athlete Assistance Program. Through the Institute of Sports, eligible athletes validated by their national sporting associations and federations have been receiving $80,000 per month to offset costs associated with their preparation for the Games. And I know they very much appreciate this support. To date, approximately 90 athletes from 10 sporting disciplines, athletics, Paralympics, rugby, male and female, boxing, karate, surfing, skateboarding, wrestling, aquatics, and gymnastics have benefited from close to $20 million. And when we have completed this support, we would have spent in excess of $40 million. Our national level athletes continue to benefit from the Jamaica Athlete Insurance Plan, which provides, among other things, coverage for overseas medical emergencies up to a maximum of $100,000 and up to 24 sessions per year for consultant psychiatry and psychology service. And specifically for the women in sports, the insurance also covers maternity.
$2.5 million have also been allocated to the G.C. Foster College for training in mental resilience. There are also plans to build out a national mental resilience program for sports. For the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuels.
Up to 10,000 fans will be allowed at Tokyo Olympic events, but organizers are warning that competition could move behind closed doors if infections surge. The decision, just weeks before the opening ceremony, ends months of speculation about whether domestic spectators would be able to attend the pandemic-postponed games. Overseas fans were banned in March. A lottery will determine which existing ticket holders can attend an Olympic game that will be unlike any other, with a cheering band, masks mandatory, and fans are told to go straight home after the competition. A decision on spectators at the Paralympics will be delayed until July 16, a week before the Olympics open. International Olympic Committee Chief Thomas Bach, speaking before the announcement, said he was, quote, absolutely sure that this will be a decision to best protect the Japanese people and all participants, end quote. Organizers say limiting spectators would cut projected ticket revenues by about 50%. And that's the news. Thanks so much for making it PBCJ, the People's Station.